The Adosian scum ripped the intestines from Sarah, the captured human girl, giggling in glee, as they splattered blue blood across the pristine lab. But the Adosians' glee would soon turn to ash in their alien mouths when humanity's fleets scorched their homeworld to molten glass. Derek Webb stood amongst the smouldering ruins of the once mighty Adosian capital, a hardened soldier in scarred power armor, gripping his pulse rifle with an iron grip. Charred Adosian corpses littered the broken streets, their dead eyes reflecting the flickering flames consuming their shattered skyscrapers. More human warships thundered down through the smoky sky. They had come to Eidos Prime to burn the Adosian cities and reduce their people to howling refugees, to get revenge and justice for Sarah, an innocent girl the Adosian butchers had kidnapped from a human colony and tortured in their secret labs. Derek still remembered seeing Sarah's ravaged body strapped to that steel table, her skin flayed off, organs removed, bones snapped, all so the arrogant council scientists could research human genetics. When humanity demanded justice, the council scoffed, refusing to punish their own. They thought humans weak prey. But now the hunters had become the hunted. Humanity would rain apocalyptic vengeance on their worlds. If the council refused humanity's wrath, if the Adosian military resisted, their entire species would be exterminated with no mercy. This was only the first of their worlds that would burn. Unless the council surrendered the butchers who tortured Sarah and gave humanity concessions and territory, the armadas in orbit would shatter every Adosian city. And if the council declared war, humanity's wrath would incinerate dozens of council species' homeworlds. Derek smiled grimly as more dropships descended on plumes of fire, disgorging human marines hungry for alien blood. It was time to show the galaxy the consequences of harming humans. Today, Eidos Prime would drown in blood. Tomorrow, the galaxy would tremble before mankind's might. 2 weeks earlier, Derek and his squad had breached the secret Idosian lab where Sarah was imprisoned. Getting the intel had taken months of dangerous recon missions and hacking council databases, but they finally had the proof to nail the alien butchers to the wall. As they gunned down Idosian guards and stormed through chrome hallways, something felt off to Derek. The resistance was pathetic, security systems a joke. The Idosians acted like they never expected a rescue attempt. When they kicked down the door to Sarah's cell, the squad froze in horror. Sarah was strapped to a metal slab, skin marred by jagged scars and bizarre cybernetic augments. Glazed eyes stared into nothing, her shattered mind barely conscious. Derek took a tentative step forward. Sarah's head snapped towards him and she shrieked, an awful sound of agony and rage. Her body convulsed against the restraints. "I would step back if I were you," an oily voice called out. A tall Idosian in a lab coat emerged from the shadows, lips twisted in a cruel sneer. "You're too late, human. We've already turned her into a weapon." "What the fuck did you do?" Derek snarled, leveling his rifle. The Idosian scientist, Taurus, smiled wider. "Cybernetic enhancements, behavioral modifications. She's our infiltrator now, our perfect Trojan horse to destroy you humans from within, and she's only the first." "Like hell," Derek signaled his squad. "Light this bastard up." They opened fire, but the rounds sparked harmlessly off a shimmering barrier around Taurus. The Idosian laughed and tapped a device on his wrist. "How unfortunate. I suppose we'll have to end our little chat early." Sarah screamed again, an almost mechanical sound. Her augmented muscles tore free of the restraints and she lunged at the squad with blinding speed. Armored gauntlets ripped through their combat armor, spattering the walls with blood. Taurus slipped out the door amid the chaos, escaping down the corridors. Derek and his men were left to fight for their lives against their friend-turned-monster, her agonized shrieks and their panicked shouts echoing through the lab. Derek and his squad fought desperately to subdue Sarah, who lashed out with superhuman strength. Pulse rifle shots struck her augmented limbs, slowing but not stopping her berserk charge. Bones crunched as armored fists connected. Blue blood sprayed. But the squad had their orders: take Sarah alive at all costs. Finally, with half the squad nursing broken bones, they managed to restrain the cyborg abomination that had once been an innocent girl. Slapping stasis cuffs on her thrashing limbs, they hauled Sarah's convulsing body back through the lab's blasted hallways, desperate to reach their cloaked insertion ship before Idosian reinforcements arrived. But Taurus wasn't letting his prize weapon escape so easily. The Idosian scientist emerged from a side corridor, flanked by hulking alien soldiers in powered combat armor. Taurus sneered at the humans, razor teeth flashing. "Leaving so soon? I'm afraid I can't let you take my greatest creation. That human is Idosian property now." "Fuck you," Derek snarled back, throwing a plasma grenade. Taurus dove behind a sparking control console as the explosive detonated. The Idosian troops opened fire, energy bolts shrieking down the hallway. Derek's squad scattered, dragging Sarah behind a row of huge tank-like structures for cover. Pulse rifles barked, armor shattered, blood sprayed the walls. But as the battle raged, Derek realized with dawning horror that the structures weren't tanks at all, but pods, and each pod had a human figure floating inside, submerged in viscous green fluid, dozens of them. Holy shit, it's a goddamn factory farm. They're not just experimenting on humans, they're mass-producing infiltrators. Righteous fury surged through Derek's veins. He leapt from cover, screaming in rage, firing at the nearest pod. It burst like a blister, dumping a coughing man onto the blood-slick floor. Derek's squad joined in, blasting pod after pod, dragging dazed victims free of the shattered Idosian glass wombs. Enraged, Taurus flew at Derek, plasma sword flashing. Derek barely got his rifle up in time to block the humming blade. Enhanced muscles strained as the two warriors traded crushing blows, cracking armor, pulverizing flesh. A kick from Derek's power armor finally knocked the sword from Taurus's grip. Another sent the alien crashing to the floor. Derek jammed his rifle in Taurus's face, finger tense on the trigger. How many? How many humans have you sick fucks taken?" Taurus spat blue blood, eyes defiant. "I'll never tell you anything, ape." Derek didn't hesitate. He pulled the trigger, painting the wall with Idosian brains. As the scientist's body slumped to the floor, the remaining soldiers broke and fled. Derek's squad finished freeing the rest of the human captives, then hauled the naked, shivering men and women back towards their ship, Sarah's limp body carried between them. Derek and his squad rushed through the ruined lab, herding the dazed human captives toward their waiting stealth ship. Alarms blared and warning lights flashed angry red. The place was coming apart. "Move it, people!" Derek barked, pulse rifle sweeping for any surviving Idosians. "Let's get the hell out of here." They piled into the sleek black ship, the rescued humans wide-eyed and shaking. Derek did a quick head count, 27. 27 souls ripped from the Idosians' clutches. Not enough. Not nearly enough to make up for this horror. But it would have to do. He slammed his fist on the cockpit door. "Punch it, Flint. Get us airborne now." The ship lurched as the engines roared to life, lifting off with a whine of straining repulsors. As they clawed for altitude, Derek stared out the viewport at the receding Idosian facility, a cold knot of dread twisting in his gut. Something still felt wrong. "Flint, do a full sweep of that place," he ordered over the comm. "Sensors, thermals, the works. I want to know if those bastards have any more surprises waiting." A few tense heartbeats passed, then Flint's voice crackled over the speakers, tight with barely controlled panic. "Boss, I'm picking up a massive energy signature from the lower levels. It's an antimatter bomb, a big one, and the readout is clicking down fast." Ice flooded Derek's veins. The Idosians had played them all for fools. This whole thing had been a trap from the start, designed to lure them in and bury the evidence, along with Derek and his team. His eyes darted to the trembling huddle of rescued captives, men and women with haunted eyes, bodies battered and minds scarred, innocents he'd sworn to save. But there was no time. No time to go back for any other survivors. No time to hunt for whatever nightmares still lurked in those twisting halls. Only the ones they'd managed to pull out would live to see another day. "Get us out of here, Flint," Derek snarled. "As far and fast as this crate can fly." The ship banked hard, engines screaming as it tore through the sky. Derek felt the pressure slam him back into his crash harness. He watched the numbers on the proximity display spiral down, his heart pounding against his ribs. 5 Uapasi, 3... The night erupted in searing white light. A second sun bloomed over the dying facility, brighter than the muzzle flash of a Nova cannon. Derek squeezed his eyes shut against the glare, after-images still blazing across his retinas. The shockwave hit a heartbeat later. The ship bucked and yawed like a mad threll, alarms shrieking. Flint wrestled with the juddering controls, teeth bared in a rictus snarl. "Hold on." The ship groaned and shuddered, viewports fracturing, bulkheads denting. But Flint's skills and the vessel's armored hull held. As quickly as it began, the brutal turbulence eased. The ship leveled out, racing away from the boiling clouds of debris and ash that had once been an Edosian lab. Derek sagged back in his acceleration chair, stomach churning. He looked again at the humans they'd saved, many weeping openly, others simply staring into space. At Sarah's unconscious, cybernetically mangled form. Then he forced himself to look at the rear display, at the military-grade scanner returns. They told the grim truth in hard, undeniable data. No life signs. The facility and anyone still trapped inside it had been scoured from existence, vaporized down to component atoms by the searing kiss of antimatter, murdered by their own monstrous masters. Bile scorched the back of Derek's throat. He wanted to howl, to put his fist through the monitors, the bulkheads, wanted to hurl himself back into the flames and hunt down every last Edosian butcher, even if they burned worlds to cinders. But that fury was a cold, hollow thing next to the yawning abyss opening in his heart. The weight of the innocence he'd abandoned settled over him like a burial shroud. He'd saved these few, but left untold numbers to die in the Edosian's pyre, a devil's choice made in the heat of crisis. One he'd spend the rest of his life reckoning with. Months dragged by as the brutal war between humanity and the Edosians consumed star system after star system. Derek fought on the front lines, leading strike teams deep into enemy territory, wreaking havoc on Edosian supply lines and communications. But even as he racked up victories, the weight of what happened to Sarah gnawed at him, a festering wound that refused to heal. Then the encrypted message arrived, from a source he couldn't trace. It claimed Sarah was still alive, held in a hidden Edosian black site. Part of Derek screamed that it had to be a trap, but he couldn't ignore even the faintest chance of saving her. He took a hand-picked squad and slipped away to the coordinates buried in the message, a lifeless rock called Erebos 9 on the edge of Edosian space. They came in hard and fast, dropship skimming over jagged obsidian mountains to reach the target, a fortified bunker complex burrowed into a canyon wall. Edosian particle beams lit the night as the dropship swooped in, ramps slamming down. Derek charged out into the hail of fire, his squad close behind. Pulse rounds and plasma grenades ripped into the defenders as they closed in, power armor shrugging off the worst of the incoming fire. Breaching charges blew the bunker's reinforced doors to atoms. Derek and his team stormed inside, cutting down Edosian guards in vicious close-quarters combat. They fought from room to room, a bloody gauntlet of shattered metal and charred bodies. At the heart of the complex they found the labs, a sterile nightmare of operating tables and sinister machines, the air thick with the stench of blood and chemicals. Tanks lined the walls, holding the twisted results of the Edosians' experiments. And there, in the center of it all, was Sarah. But not the Sarah he remembered, not anymore. She floated in a larger tank suspended in bubbling green fluid, her body a horrific fusion of flesh and metal. Glowing cybernetics threaded her limbs, pulsing in grotesque patterns. Her eyes, once a warm brown, now blazed an unnatural red. "Sarah," Derek whispered, pressing a hand to the glass, "what have they done to you?" He motioned his squad forward to get her out, but as they approached the tank, Sarah's eyes snapped open. She lurched forward, cybernetic muscles bunching, and smashed through the glass in a geyser of fluid. Shards ripped into Derek's armor as he staggered back. Sarah hit the floor on all fours, more machine than human. She looked up at him, no recognition in her burning eyes, only rage and pain, an animal fury. "Sarah, it's me," Derek pleaded, lowering his rifle. "It's Derek, we're here to—" She lunged faster than thought. Jagged metal claws tore into his chest plate, sending him crashing across the room. His squad opened fire, but Sarah moved like quicksilver, ripping into them with terrifying savagery. Bones shattered, limbs flew, blood painted the walls. Derek struggled to his feet as his men died around him, their screams mixing with Sarah's distorted howls. He raised his rifle, but hesitated, unable to shoot. Sarah's claws raked across his helmet, shattering the visor. He fell back, firing one-handed bursts that went wide. A claw punched into his shoulder, shredding muscle. Warnings flashed across his HUD as the joint went dead. He dropped the rifle, vision graying. Sarah loomed over him, more blood than skin, a mangled cybernetic monster. She raised her claws for the killing blow, and he saw his chance. His hand dropped to his belt and closed around the grip of his sidearm. "I'm sorry," he choked out, tears streaking his face. "I'm so sorry." The gun kicked against his palm. The muzzle flash lit Sarah's snarling face, casting it in stark light and shadow. The round punched through her eye, and she went rigid, claws inches from his throat. Then she toppled, the light fading from her remaining eye, leaving only a dull, empty red. Derek let the gun fall from nerveless fingers. He crawled to Sarah's side, cradling her ruined body, and wept like a child. Wept for the friend he'd failed, for the mockery the Adosians had made of her, wept for the hollow future that stretched before him, drenched in blood. There was nothing left now but the war. No hope, no redemption, only the cold embrace of a gun and the savage joy of tearing the enemy apart. Derek left Sarah there, among the broken machinery. Just one more body in the charnel house the galaxy had become. He stumbled back to his waiting ship alone. The rumble of the engines and the thrum of the guns would be his only comfort now. The only thing he had left. He would fight until there was nothing left to fight for, and then fight some more. Rip and tear until it was done. That was all this universe had to offer. A red tide rising to drown them all. Derek welcomed it. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.